When did you become someone you didn't recognize? My daughter Wren hadn't dated anyone since her mother died 3 years ago, so when she finally brought someone home to meet me, I was terrified of ruining it, because Andrew showed up in a button-down shirt with a firm handshake and a bottle of decent wine, looking me straight in the eye when he promised to treat Wren with respect. I'd been practicing what to say all week, worried I'd come across as the overprotective father who'd already driven Wren to cancel 2 other relationships before they got serious enough for introductions. After her mother's death, Wren and I had become each other's whole world, and I knew she needed to let someone else in, even if it scared me to share her. And Andrew seemed great. When he found out I loved fishing, and his whole face lit up. He told me about trips with his late father before cancer took him 2 years ago. That weekend, Andrew joined me at the lake, just the 2 of us. We spent 6 hours on the water talking about everything from his accounting job to his plans to propose once he saved enough for a proper ring. He asked my advice about marriage and being a good partner, genuinely listening when I talked about losing my wife and how I wished I'd had more time with her. When I mentioned that Wren had barely smiled since the funeral, Andrew promised he'd do everything to bring joy back into her life. When he helped me load the boat and I called him son, his eyes watered like I'd given him something he'd been missing since his dad died. Over the next few months, Andrew became the son I'd never had, and more importantly, he brought Wren back to life. Every time I saw her, there were more hints of the happy girl I'd missed since her mother died. Andrew would stop by on weekends to help with yard work, while Wren pulled nursing shifts, fixed my garage door without letting me pay him, and started joining me for Thursday night dinners when Wren worked late. During Thanksgiving, he gave this beautiful toast about finding not just love with Wren, but the family he'd lost when his father died, and everyone got emotional, including my brother, who never cries at anything. When my own father died suddenly in February, Andrew took time off work to help with arrangements and stood beside me at the service like actual family. He even asked my blessing to propose with his grandmother's vintage ring, and I told him nothing would make me happier than officially calling him my son. We started taking weekend trips together, all 3 of us, camping at state parks where Andrew would wake up early to make everyone coffee over the fire. During a trip to the mountains, he taught me how to fly fish, something I'd always wanted to learn, but never had anyone patient enough to show me. He stood in the freezing river for 3 hours, fixing my casting technique, never getting frustrated when I tangled the line for the 20th time. Watching Wren watch us from the shore, smiling like I hadn't seen since before the cancer took her mother, I thought maybe we'd both found our way through GR, but then everything came crashing down. One night, someone was pounding on my door so hard I grabbed the baseball bat from my closet. When I yanked it open ready to swing, Wren stood there in pajamas, barefoot in the freezing cold, the entire left side of her face swollen purple and black. Her eye was completely shut, and blood dripped from her split lip onto her white shirt as she collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. She finally told me Andrew had been hitting her for months, starting with grabbed wrists and shoves, escalating to punches where clothes would hide the bruises. He'd convinced her she was lucky to have him after being so damaged by her mother's death, that no one else would want someone so broken, that I'd finally seemed happy again, and she'd ruin that if I knew. Tonight he'd gotten drunk and accused her of cheating because she smiled at the grocery store clerk, then punched her unconscious when she tried to leave. The man I'd called son had been destroying my daughter while I taught him my grandfather's fishing spots and trusted him with family recipes. I thought about all the signs I'd missed while celebrating Wren's return to happiness. The makeup getting heavier, her flinching when Andrew moved too quickly, the way she'd gone quiet at dinners while he told all the stories, her asking about a girls' trip and Andrew laughing about why she'd need to go anywhere without him. That strange moment at Easter when she dropped a plate and went white with terror before Andrew smiled and said, "Accidents happen." How she'd stopped wearing her usual clothes and started covering every inch of skin. My daughter had been screaming for help in silence while I thanked Andrew for bringing her back to life. I held Wren while she cried herself to sleep on my couch, her body still shaking, even unconscious from whatever trauma I couldn't see under her clothes. When she woke up hours later, disoriented and terrified until she recognized my living room, I looked at her destroyed face and thought about what her mother would want me to do. My wife had made me promise before she died that I'd protect our daughter no matter what it took, that I'd be both parents, both protector and nurturer. Looking at Wren's destroyed face, I felt something cold and final settle deep in my chest, knowing exactly what her mother would expect from me now. I kissed her forehead gently around the bruises and tucked the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I'm going to take care of this permanently," I told her, my voice coming from somewhere I didn't recognize, "and you're never going to have to worry about Andrew again. The same sun that would rise tomorrow on whatever came next." I must have dozed off at the table because suddenly Wren's hand was on my shoulder, shaking me gently. The clock showed 7 in the morning. 3 hours had passed like nothing. "Dad?" Her voice was small, careful. "Did you go see him?" I looked up at her ruined face, the bruises even darker in the morning light. She knew. Of course she knew. We'd always been able to read each other, especially after her mother died. "He's leaving town," I said simply. She sank into the chair across from me, wincing as her ribs protested the movement. "What did you do?" "What needed to be done?" We sat in silence for a while, the weight of unspoken truths oaths filling the space between us. Then Wren started crying again, but these weren't tears of fear or pain. These were tears of shame. I should have been stronger, she whispered. Should have left him months ago. Should have. Stop. I reached across and took her hand. None of this is on you. 2 hours later, I was helping Wren into the car. Every movement hurt her. I could see it in the way she held her breath getting into the seat, the way she pressed her hand against her ribs. The hospital wasn't far, but every bump in the road made her flinch. We need to document everything, I said, though the words tasted bitter. Document it for what? So Andrew could hire a lawyer and claim she was lying? The emergency room was quiet for a Tuesday morning. Dr. Michelle Schwartz took us back immediately when she saw Wren's face. She was gentle but thorough, cataloging every bruise with clinical precision. Purple-black around the eye, split lip requiring 3 stitches, bruised ribs, possibly cracked, finger marks on both upper arms, older bruises on her back in various stages of healing, yellow ones from weeks ago, purple ones from last week. The state will press charges even if you don't want to, Dr. Schwartz explained while taking photographs. With injuries this severe, it's out of your hands. Wren nodded numbly. I paced the hallway outside while they finished the examination, my hands clenching and unclenching. Every photo was evidence of my failure to protect her. Every bruise was a time I'd laughed at Andrew's jokes instead of seeing what he really was. At 11, Detective Elizabeth Moody arrived. She was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes and an air of competence that made me trust her immediately. She interviewed Wren alone while I waited outside, wearing a groove in the hospital's linoleum floor. Through the door's window, I could see Wren crying as she talked, Detective Moody handing her tissues and waiting patiently for her to continue. An hour passed, then another. When they finally emerged, both women looked drained. Mr. Atkins, Detective Moody said, we're going to find Andrew and arrest him. Attempted murder, assault, battery. He's looking at serious time. If you can find him, I said. Her expression darkened. Men like Andrew always think they're smarter than they are. We'll find him. But when we got home that afternoon, I wasn't taking chances. I installed new deadbolts on every door while Wren rested on the couch. Her friend Laura Gonzalez came by with soup and stayed to keep Wren company while I reinforced windows and checked sight lines from the street. Has he tried to contact you? Laura asked Wren quietly. Number Dad scared him last night. Wren glanced at me. He won't come here. But we were both wrong. The next day, Andrew showed up at the hospital where Wren worked. Security footage showed him arguing with the guards, demanding to see her, claiming he was still her emergency contact. He caused such a scene that 3 security guards had to physically remove him. Wren's boss put her on immediate leave for her safety and the safety of other staff. He's taking everything from me, Wren said when she got home. My job, my sense of safety, everything. It's temporary, I told her, though we both knew some things couldn't be gotten back. 3 days after the confrontation, Detective Moody called with frustrating news. They couldn't find Andrew to serve the restraining order. His apartment was empty, cleared out in a hurry. His phone was off, his credit cards unused, his car nowhere to be found. Do you have somewhere else you could stay? She asked. Family out of town? We're not running from him, Wren said firmly. Why did Andrew need to put on such a perfect show for months if his real plan was just to hurt Wren? The fishing trips, the family dinners, helping with the father's funeral. That's a lot of effort for someone who's secretly violent, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Andrew knew our routines, our schedules, where we shopped, where we ate. He'd spent months studying us while pretending to love us. That evening, I went out to my truck to get groceries and found all 4 tires slashed, deep, angry cuts that had let them deflate completely. A note under the windshield in Andrew's handwriting. You took everything from me. Daniel came to help me change them, bringing his whole kit from the garage. As we worked, he mentioned quietly, I've got a gun you can borrow, if you need it. Not yet, I said, though we both knew that was changing. The offer stands, Daniel said. Some problems can't be fixed with talking. That night, day 4 since the confrontation, Wren woke up screaming at 2 in the morning. I found her barricaded in the bathroom, convinced Andrew was in the house. She'd pushed the hamper against the door and was crouched in the tub, shaking violently. He's here, she kept saying. I heard him. He's in the house. It took an hour to calm her down enough to come out. We checked every room together, every closet, under every bed. The house was empty, but the fear remained. She asked me to check again, then again. Would you really have killed him? She asked as dawn broke. That night at his apartment? I didn't answer. We both knew the truth. The 5th day, we started moving between places. Daniel's house for one night, a motel the next. Laura's apartment, never the same place twice, never a predictable pattern. Wren hated it. Hated being driven from her own home. Hated giving Andrew that power. This is what he wants, she said. To control us, even when he's not here. Detective Moody checked in daily, frustrated by Andrew's ability to stay hidden. He has to surface eventually. Men like him can't stay away. Their obsession won't let them. On the 7th day, we made the mistake of going home to get more clothes. The house looked normal from the outside, but inside, things had been moved. Photos turned face down. My wife's picture missing from the mantel, and on Wren's bed, a dead fish, the same kind we used to catch at the lake. He'd been in our house, touched our things, left his mark to show he could get to us whenever he wanted. Wren stood in her doorway, staring at the dead fish on her pillow. Something in her expression hardened. I'm not letting him chase us from Mom's house. This is our home. Wren, no. Her voice was steel. We stop running. We make our stand here. The 8th day started with Daniel calling. His voice was tight, urgent. Mike, I just saw your boy Andrew at the Chevy Chevron on Route 9. He was buying gas cans, talking to himself, looked rough, like he hadn't slept in days. My blood went cold. Gas cans meant fire. Fire meant he was planning something. Did you call the police? Yeah, but he was gone before they got there. Mike, he looked bad. Real bad. Like a man with nothing left to lose. That evening, I was cleaning Daniel's gun in the garage when Wren found me. I'd finally taken him up on his offer, telling myself it was just a precaution, but we both knew better. She stood in the doorway watching me oil the barrel, her expression unreadable. Teach me. Wren, I need to know how to protect myself. Her voice was steady, determined. You won't always be there. And Andrew, he's not going to stop. So I taught my daughter how to hold a gun. We went down to the basement where the sound wouldn't carry, working with it unloaded. I showed her the safety, how to check a chamber, how to aim. Her hands were steady, steadier than mine had been that night at Andrew's apartment. Mom would hate this, she said, sighting down the barrel at an imaginary target. No, I corrected. Your mom would hate that it's necessary. 2 more days crawled by. We moved through them like ghosts, always watching, always ready. Then Detective Moody called with what she said was good news. We've tracked him to the Riverside Motel off Highway 60, she said, excitement creeping into her professional tone. We're going to arrest him tomorrow morning. This will all be over soon. Wren actually smiled when I told her. A real smile. The first I'd seen since that night she showed up barefoot and bleeding. We ordered pizza that evening, pretending things were normal, pretending we weren't both armed now, changed by Andrew's poison into people we didn't recognize. But the arrest went wrong. Detective Moody called the next morning, her voice flat with frustration. He ran, saw us coming and took off in his car, crashed into a tree about 2 miles down the road. Is he? I couldn't finish the question with Wren listening. Injured but alive. Broken arm, concussion. He's in custody now, but Mike, she paused. He's saying you attacked him first, that Wren is lying about the abuse. His lawyer is already building a case. The trial was set for 6 months away. 6 months of waiting, of looking over our shoulders, of Andrew's shadow growing longer. But the worst part came a week later when he made bail. It's substantial, Detective Moody assured us, and he'll have an ankle monitor. The judge says he's not a flight risk. Wren went pale at the news. I felt that cold thing in my chest, the thing that had been growing since that night, spread a little further. Andrew stayed with his cousin just outside the restraining order's 1,000-foot limit. We'd see his car parked at the legal distance from our house, from Wren's work, from the grocery store. Always watching, always there. The police said they couldn't do anything if he wasn't breaking the order. He's smart, Detective Moody admitted during one of her check-ins. Knows exactly how far he can push without violating the terms. That night, I followed Andrew to a bar downtown. I sat in my truck in the parking lot, watching through the window as he laughed with friends, gesturing wildly. I could see him playing the victim, probably telling them about his crazy ex-girlfriend and her violent father. They believed him. Men like Andrew were always believed. I sat there with Daniel's gun on the seat beside me, thinking how easy it would be. Wait for him to come out drunk, follow him to a dark spot, make it look like a mugging gone wrong. But Wren needed me here, not in prison. So I drove home and found her sitting at the kitchen table, unable to sleep. You followed him, she said, not a question. Yeah. Did you? Number, but I wanted to. She nodded, understanding perfectly. We were both fighting the same battle now, the one between who we used to be and who Andrew was turning us into. 3 days later, Andrew cut his ankle monitor and disappeared. The call came early in the morning. Detective Moody sounded exhausted. He's in the wind. We're searching, but just be careful. Lock everything. We'll have a car outside your house. We spent that day barricaded inside, jumping at every sound. The police car outside was reassuring, but we both knew if Andrew really wanted in, he'd find a way. Men like him always did. That afternoon, they found his car at the lake, our lake, the place where we'd spent so many peaceful hours fishing, where he'd called me Pops, and I'd taught him to tie flies. He was poisoning every good memory, turning them all into weapons. We're searching the area, Detective Moody told us, but there's a lot of ground to cover. He wasn't running. We both knew that. He was planning something. The next evening, Daniel called me from his garage. His voice was shaky, scared in a way I'd never heard from a man who'd survived 3 tours in Afghanistan. He was here, Mike, in my garage with a knife. We fought. I broke his arm, the good one, but he got away. I need stitches, but I'll be okay. Daniel, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. Just keep that gun close. He's hurt bad now and desperate. That makes him more dangerous, not less. The next morning, Andrew called from a stolen phone. His voice was slurred from pain pills, barely coherent, but the rage came through clear. This is your fault, he rambled. You turned her against me. We were happy. We were perfect. You ruined everything. Come try something, I said, my voice steady. See what happens. Oh, I will. I'm going to take everything from you, just like you took everything from me. The line went dead. We both knew this was ending soon, one way or another. Detective Moody came by that afternoon with evidence bags full of journals they'd found in Andrew's car. Pages and pages about Wren, detailed plans for taking her, receipts for rope and sedatives. She showed us photos of the pages, Wren's name written hundreds of times in increasingly erratic handwriting. Wren ran to the bathroom and threw up. I stared at the photos, at the physical evidence of Andrew's obsession, and felt that cold thing in my chest freeze solid. We need to get you somewhere safe, Detective Moody said. Somewhere he doesn't know about. That night, I took Wren to our cabin in the woods. It was 3 hours north, a place her mother and I had bought years ago but rarely used. Andrew had never known about it. We should be safe there. But when we arrived, there were fresh footprints in the dirt around the cabin. Boot prints footprints that weren't ours, circling the building like a predator stalking prey. "He found us," Wren whispered. "We were alone out here. No cell service, no neighbors for miles. Exactly where he wanted us. I checked every lock, every window, while Wren unpacked our things. We had food for a few days, the gun, the bat. We could hold out until morning, then drive back to town and regroup, but something felt wrong. The woods were too quiet, like even the animals knew a predator was near. At 10 o'clock, the power went out. Not a flicker or a surge, just sudden, complete darkness. Not an accident. "Stay calm," I whispered to Wren, though my own heart was racing. "Get the gun." I heard movement outside, footsteps on the deck, slow, deliberate. Power goes out in a remote cabin while a dangerous stalker circles outside. Someone clearly watched too many scary movies and thought, "Hey, let's try all the classics at once." He wanted us to know he was there. "Wren, lock yourself in the bathroom," I said. "Number." Her voice was firm. We stayed together. She had the gun. I had the bat. We stood in the dark living room, backs to the wall, waiting. Andrew's voice came from outside, muffled but clear. "I love you, Wren. I can't live without you." His words switched between pleading and threatening, love and hate, all mixed together in a toxic soup of obsession. "We were meant to be together. Your father poisoned you against me, but I forgive you. I'll always forgive you, even after you made me hurt you." "You're sick," Wren called out, her voice stronger than I expected. "I'm sick?" Andrew laughed, high and unhinged. "You're the one who made me like this. You and your damaged little family, your dead mother and broken father. I tried to fix you both, but you wouldn't let me." The window exploded. Glass showered across the room as Andrew climbed through, his broken arm in a filthy cast, his good arm holding the knife from Daniel's garage. His eyes were wild, unfocused, like he was seeing something beyond this room. I swung the bat, but he ducked with surprising speed for someone so injured. He rushed at Wren, knife raised, screaming something incoherent about love and betrayal. The gun fired. The sound was impossibly loud in the small cabin, making my ears ring. Andrew staggered back, red spreading across his shirt, but he didn't fall. He took another step toward Wren, knife still raised. I brought the bat down on his shoulder with all my strength. I felt bones break, heard him scream. The knife fell from his hand as he dropped to his knees. He fell forward, blood pooling beneath him on the cabin floor. His breathing was wet, labored. Wren stood frozen, gun still raised, staring at what we'd done. I checked his pulse, weak but there. He was dying but not dead yet. We had minutes to decide. I reached for my phone to call 911, but Wren's hand stopped me. "Wait," she said, her voice perfectly steady. She looked down at Andrew bleeding on the floor, remembering every bruise, every threat, every moment of terror he'd given her. "What would Mom do?" she asked. We both knew the answer. Her mother would have protected her daughter at any cost, would have chosen Wren's safety over Andrew's life without hesitation. We stood there for 5 long minutes, watching Andrew's breathing get shallower. His eyes found Wren one last time, confused and angry even at the end. Then they went empty. Only then did I call 911. "There's been an intruder," I said calmly. "He broke in and attacked us. We defended ourselves. We need police and an ambulance, though it's too late for the intruder." The police arrived within the hour, though it felt like days. Detective Moody took our statements separately, but our stories matched because they were mostly true. We just left out those 5 minutes of watching, of choosing. The scene supported our story. Broken window, knife, Andrew's history. Detective Moody's eyes stayed on mine a beat too long, like she could see through the carefully constructed timeline, but she just nodded and closed her notebook. "We'll need you both at the station for formal statements," she said. "Standard procedure." The drive to the police station at 2 in the morning felt surreal. Wren sat beside me in the passenger seat, still wearing the shirt with Andrew's blood on it. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? We'd crossed a line together, become accomplices in something darker than self-defense. At the station, they separated us. Different rooms, different detectives. Christopher Clark interviewed me while Detective Moody took Wren. I stuck to our story. The break-in, the attack, defending ourselves. I described Andrew climbing through the window with the knife, Wren firing when he came at her, me hitting him with the bat. All true. I just compressed the timeline, made his death immediate instead of those long 5 minutes of watching him bleed out. "You did what you had to do," Detective Clark said when I finished. Clear case of self-defense. But his tone suggested he knew there was more. Cops always know. They just decide what's worth pursuing. When they finally released us at dawn, Wren looked hollow. We drove home in silence, past news vans already gathering at the cabin. By morning, Andrew's death would be everywhere. The next day, the story hit the local news. Woman kills ex-boyfriend in self-defense after months of abuse. They used Andrew's booking photo from his arrest, making him look dangerous. They used Wren's nursing school graduation photo, making her look innocent. The narrative wrote itself. Brave survivor fights back against her abuser. Nobody questioned it. Wren's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends who hadn't known about the abuse. She didn't answer any of them, just sat at the kitchen table staring at her hands. The hands that had held the gun. The hands that had pulled the trigger. "They all want to know why I didn't tell them," she said quietly. "How do I explain that shame is louder than fear?" 2 days later, Daniel came by to fix the window in my truck that Andrew had smashed weeks ago. We worked in comfortable silence, the way men do when words would make things worse. Before he left, he gripped my shoulder. "Your wife would be proud," he said. "You protected Wren. That's all that matters." I wanted to believe him, but I kept thinking about those 5 minutes, about the choice we'd made to let Andrew die, would she be proud of that too, or horrified at what we'd become? The investigation closed quickly. Week 2, Detective Moody called with the official news. No charges would be filed. Clear self-defense. The prosecutor wouldn't even take it to a grand jury. Andrew's history of violence, the restraining order, the break-in, the weapon, everything supported our story. You can move on now, she said. But moving on wasn't that simple. Trauma doesn't end when the threat dies. It lives in your bones, changes your DNA, rewrites who you are at a cellular level. Wren went back to work 3 weeks after Andrew's death. She tried to pretend everything was normal, but I could see the changes. She flinched when male patients raised their voices. She checked every exit in every room. She kept her back to walls, never to doors. The easy trust she'd once given freely was gone, replaced by constant vigilance. A patient grabbed my wrist today, she told me one evening, just trying to get my attention, but I almost broke his fingers before I remembered where I was. We had our first real dinner together 4 weeks after that night. Not takeout eaten in silence, but an actual meal I cooked. Wren pushed food around her plate for a while before speaking. I'm not sorry he's dead, she said, meeting my eyes. I'm sorry I had to be the one to pull the trigger. I'm sorry for what it's done to us, but I'm not sorry he's gone. I know, I said, and I did. The guilt we carried wasn't about Andrew's death. It was about becoming people capable of choosing to let someone die. The next week, I found Wren at the cemetery, sitting by her mother's grave. She was talking quietly, telling her mother everything, about Andrew, about the abuse, about that night in the cabin, about who we'd become. I asked her if she'd forgive us, Wren said when I sat beside her, for what we did, for what we didn't do. What do you think she'd say? I think she'd say she's glad we're alive. That's all she ever wanted, for us to survive, even if surviving changed us. That afternoon, Detective Moody stopped by the house. Not officially, she made that clear. Just checking in, she said. But over coffee, she told us something that shifted the weight on my chest. Andrew had 2 other restraining orders, she said quietly. Different states, different women, similar patterns of escalation. You weren't his first victims. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But you were his last. Sometimes the system fails, and people have to protect themselves. I'm glad you both survived. After she left, Wren and I sat with that information. Andrew had done this before, would have done it again. How many women had we saved by ending him? The next week, we went to Wren's apartment to pack Andrew's things. She'd been putting it off, but his cousin wanted his belongings. As we boxed up his clothes and books, Wren found something that made her go pale. Hidden cameras, 3 of them, tucked in vents and behind picture frames. He'd been watching her even when he wasn't there. The violation felt fresh all over again, continuing even after his death. How long? Wren asked, though we both knew there was no good answer. We burned the cameras in the backyard, watching the plastic melt and smoke. Another secret between us, another thing we'd never tell anyone. Daniel and Laura helped us repaint the house that weekend, trying to cover the ghosts that lingered in every room. We painted Wren's old bedroom, the living room where she'd collapsed that first night, the kitchen where we'd planned what to do. Laura brought music and wine, trying to make it feel like a fresh start instead of an exorcism. At one point, Daniel made a joke about my terrible paint technique, and Wren actually laughed. Not a polite laugh or a forced laugh, but a real one that came from her belly. For just a moment, she looked like herself again. The girl from before Andrew, before the abuse, before that night in the cabin. Then the shadow returned, but that moment of light gave me hope. We started therapy together 8 weeks after Andrew's death. The counselor asked us directly if we regretted that night. Wren and I looked at each other, a whole conversation in that glance. We'd never talked about the 5 minutes, not directly, but we both knew it lived between us, a shared secret that bonded us in darkness. We regret that it came to that, I said finally. We regret not seeing the signs sooner. Those 5 minutes of watching him die, that's quite the detail to leave out of their police statements, isn't it? Makes me wonder what Detective Moody really knows when she mentions those other restraining orders so casually later. We regret that Andrew chose violence and forced us to choose it too. But not the outcome? The therapist pressed gently. No, Wren said firmly, not the outcome. 2 months after that night, I found myself at the lake where Andrew and I used to fish. I stood on the shore, remembering all those peaceful mornings, teaching him to tie flies, him calling me Pops with tears in his eyes, the way he'd talked about finding the father he'd lost. Had any of it been real, or was every moment calculated manipulation, designed to get closer to Wren? I'd probably never know. Predators like Andrew were expert chameleons, showing you exactly what you wanted to see. Wren found me there that afternoon. She stood beside me, picking up flat stones and skipping them across the water. We didn't talk for a long time, just stood together watching the ripples spread and fade. Does it matter? She finally asked. Whether any of it was real? I thought about that. I guess not. Real or fake, it led to the same place. We survived, she said. That's what matters, even if we're different people now. As evening approached, the lake turned golden in the setting sun. Wren looked at me with those eyes that had seen too much. Do you recognize yourself anymore? She asked, the question I'd been avoiding for 2 months. I thought about the man who'd taught Andrew to fish, who'd trusted him with family recipes, who'd called him son. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, someone capable of watching a man die without calling for help. No, I admitted, but I recognized the man your mother needed me to become, the father who'd do anything to protect his daughter. She nodded, understanding perfectly. We were both strangers to ourselves now, transformed by violence and necessity. As darkness fell, we stayed by the lake, 2 people forever changed. bound by blood both shared and spilled. The water was calm, reflecting stars that were starting to appear. We were not calm. We might never be calm again, but we were alive. We were together. And sometimes, when the world shows you its teeth, that's the only victory that matters. Wren took my hand as we stood there, her grip firm and sure. Mom would understand, she said, about the monsters we became to fight the monster. She'd understand that sometimes love means becoming something terrible to protect what matters. The lake held all our memories, the good ones with Andrew before we knew what he was, and the knowledge of what we'd done after. It would keep our secrets, this place where I'd once been happy and innocent. Now it would be where I came to remember that innocence was a luxury we could no longer afford. We were survivors now, Wren and I. Not victims, not heroes, just two people who'd done what was necessary when the system failed us. We'd chosen each other over everything else, even our own souls, and as we walked back to the car in darkness, leaving the lake to its ancient silence, I knew we'd make that choice again, every time. Time to close the book on this one, folks. Appreciate you letting me bring my particular brand of commentary to your day. Like the video, it helps more than you think.